Okay guys, so this is the virtual lab for entomology, which is on how to use insects to determine time of death. Or in this case, they're calling it the PMI, which is post-mortem, so after death, interval. So how long has it been since the person died is what we're trying to figure out. If you would rather do this yourself, to allow the flash player, you come up here to this little lock button, and then you go down to the flash and tell it to allow, and then usually you can just refresh the page, and then it'll work for yourself. But if you are just having trouble with your internet getting this page to open, or the virtual lab to actually like do its thing, or if you would just rather watch me go through it, then that's fine. So here's your video. The first part of your assignment, I'm going to kind of go back and forth. So this is task 1, to go through this virtual lab. So we've done that, we've opened it up, and the first thing says, before clicking to go to the crime scene, we're just gonna roll over these tools. I didn't make you do all of them, just 3 of them that are more important, I feel. So you're gonna click on the tools or really just hover over them and read what they are. So I'm gonna read these out loud, so you could be typing them in as you watch this video on your phone. That'd probably be a pretty good method. So the first one says to find the secure ventilated jars. So I'm going to find those. That's here. So secure ventilated jars says, and you don't have to write all of this. You just have to like summarize what this says. So larvae need air to breathe. Live specimens will need to be reared in the lab, meaning they're going to have to continue growing up the maggots they bring back to the lab to determine their species. Because basically maggots look like maggots. So you can have all different kind of maggots from different kind of flies that grow at different time intervals. So then how are you supposed to know your time of death if you don't know what species of maggot you have? So if they don't, there's really no other way to know what species you have at this point in time, except for taking a maggot, bringing it back to your lab and letting it grow to an adult and then identifying the species. So then you can know exactly how long that type of maggot in that type of environment generally takes to grow. So then you could calculate time of death after that. They're working on methods to speed this process up, but that it is kind of a slow process. It takes anywhere from a couple days to a week for a maggot to become a fly. So you have to do that though, so we can figure out the species to determine an accurate time of death. Okay. Specimen jars with 70% ethyl alcohol is the next one. So I'll roll over that. Here we go. So we also don't only want to let them grow up in those jars. We also need to know exactly how we found them. So you're going to take some of the maggots and immediately put them into these specimen jars with 70% ethyl alcohol. It will basically immediately kill the maggot and stop their biological clock so they don't grow anymore, because we're going to have to measure them later so that after we figure out the species from letting the other ones grow up, then we can go back and say, well, these ones like they were this size when we found it. So how long did it take for them to get that size? How many days? How long has the person been dead? So you need both of these methods. You have to kill some of them so you know the exact size when you found them, and you have to let some grow up into a fly so you can know what species of maggot you were dealing with. Okay, next is a portable weather station. So much research has to go into this. It's not, I mean, everything that I've talked about, as well as weather patterns. So flies, and really insects in general, yes, they always go through that process of egg, like kind of like larva stage, and they metamorphosis and turn into some kind of flying bug, but they do that at different speeds based on the temperature. So like usually if it's warmer, they're going to grow at a faster rate. If it's colder, they're going to grow at a slower rate. So you also have to have the weather of the area. So usually they'll put out a portable weather station to gather data for not just one day. You want to get an average span of what the weather was like in that area of where the dead body was found, so you can figure out how much would that affect the rate of growth of the insects you find. Okay, so now we've went through the 3 that I thought were most important. So now we're going to move on. It says here to go to the crime scene now. So now we're going to actually go to the crime scene, click at the insects, and see what they tell us. So I'm going to flip this over to the other side. So this is the other side of questions you'll be answering for your virtual lab. And I'm just going to walk you through it. If you notice on this side, it says you have to go through it twice to be able to see all the insects. So I'll do that. We will go through it twice so you can see all the insects that are to choose, because right here, so I said go to the crime scene. As an insect, and invertebrates colonize a corpse in successive measured rates, the oldest specimens can be linked to the body will provide the best clues. So we're looking for the oldest things, but being that you're just now starting the process of understanding entomology, you probably don't know exactly what the oldest things really are. Like, what are the most important insects at a crime scene? We're going to continue. So the reason why you have to do this twice is because they only let you pick up 5 insects at a time, and there's more than 5 insects. I think there's like 8 or something like that. So I have to go through the process twice so we can make sure we've seen everything so you get all your questions answered. All right, so I'm just gonna kind of pick at random. We're gonna pick this scorpion, some fly eggs, these adult flies. We'll go with a pupa, and we'll go with a spider. Okay, and we'll see if that is enough to tell us the time of death, which is your goal. So down here, the conclusion, what was the time of death? How did you determine it? What was the best insect evidence? We'll see if we have it. So let's go to next. Okay. So basically you just click on each one of these and see what they have to tell us by having these different insects. But let's kind of check what our questions are. So it says, which insect are pioneers and often appear within minutes? So we're looking for something that says that. What will develop within 4 days? So we'll be looking for something like that. What will develop in 4 days? What will appear within a day and a half to prey on larvae? What is the difference between adult flies and flies with crumpled wings? What is the best source of evidence for that? Which one is better, to have adult flies or flies with crumpled wings? Which insects don't help you determine time of death? So some in here like won't tell us anything, and you'll write those down. All right, so let's look at this here scorpion. So the scorpion, though formidable looking, is no way linked to the body. Primarily nocturnal and sensitive to light, it is most likely just hanging out there for some shelter during the day. It might also be looking to eat other insects around there, but it doesn't have anything to do with the body or time of death. So that's something that you would put over here, and which insects don't help us tell time of death? Scorpions. So anything that is more like a predator hanging around there usually doesn't tell you that much. Okay, next one, fly eggs. So you've identified these eggs as green bottlefly. So they're green bottlefly eggs. In this kind of environment, they may be laid within the first 2 hours. So right now we have our first time of death reference telling us it's been at least like an hour or 2. So that's like they can find them and lay eggs within that time. So that's not giving us much time past death is what that would be saying. I don't think I have any specific questions for that. Nope. All right, so let's click on this adult fly. You have identified the species of blowflies and houseflies. Both are considered pioneer flies. That was our answer over here. So which insect are pioneers and often appear within minutes? Does this presence mean the person has been recently deceased? Why or why not? So going back over here, so blowflies and houseflies are pioneer flies. They're attracted to the corpse within minutes and are typically the first to witness the death. You have found the flies to be valuable for identifying species, but just when they arrive on the scene is unknown. So back over here, does this presence mean the person is recently deceased? No, because flies are going to continually come. It's not like they only come right after the person dies, lay eggs, and then never come back again. As long as there is still a decaying body, flies will continually come and continually lay eggs. So it really doesn't give us any kind of time of death. It's just telling us that probably we're going to find those kind of maggots on the body since we're finding that kind of adult fly. Okay. Next one is we have this empty pupa case. So as you found this pupa case in the hair of the victim, it is a solid link to the body. It also tells you that at least one generation of fly has completed development and has hatched out from the case. You have estimated this entire process takes about 15 days. So this is our first really good piece of evidence. It's been at least 15 days for a fly to find the body, lay eggs, the eggs hatch, turn into maggots, feast on the body until they decide to go into a pupa, and then they came out of a pupa. So this is an empty pupa case. So it's been at least 15 days for all of that to occur since the person died. Okay. And then a spider. So despite its deadly reputation, this venomous spider rarely injects enough toxins to kill a person. Though it's found in the body, this spider has no connection to the victim. It may simply just be wandering around searching for food. So kind of the same thing as a scorpion. It can be added to our insects that don't really help us determine time of death because it's probably just there to eat other bugs. All right, so let's see. Determine time of death. So the highest number we got to is 15 days, which I don't see that as an answer choice, so I'm just going to say we had inconclusive evidence because obviously we didn't find the answer they were looking for. So it's just going to tell us to do it again, which we needed to do anyways. Okay, so let's get the other bugs that I haven't seen yet. I'm going to get the large maggots. I'm going to get the small maggots. I'm going to get this fly with crumpled wings. I'm going to get this beetle. And then just because you have to fill it up again, I'll grab this adult fly. Then we'll have seen everything that's available. Okay, so you have taken your next specimen, so let's just kind of start going through it. Here's the large maggots. So as maggots grow in size with age, large maggots are typically older and therefore more important. So usually if you're like trying to choose ones, the biggest maggots are the ones that are going to be more important to you because that means they've been in the body longer. Not always, because there are different species of flies, but usually it means they're more important. That is if they are in the same species. So in addition to preserving a few in order to stop the clock, so we're going to put some in our alcohol specimen jars and we're going to keep some to figure out what species it is. And check the temperature. You've discovered they are the species of housefly in their third instar stage. So that's pretty late in the larva stage. And it takes about 4 days to reach. I remember that being an answer. So what will develop in 4 days? Large maggots. So it takes about 4 days for a fly to lay an egg, for it to hatch, for it to grow and shed its skin 3 whole times. So it's really a pretty fast circle of life that they have going on, about 4 days, and you're gonna have large maggots that are almost ready to go into their pupa state. So that should be the answer to number 3. Okay, let's look at the small ones. So small maggots, though small maggots typically suggest a younger age than larger ones, you've identified these as a different species that are just naturally smaller, called blowfly specimens. So you've noted that they have opaque skin, they've stopped eating, and are found away from the body. That tells us that they're in their pre-pupa stage. They're done eating and they're about to go into a pupa stage, which gives us 9 days. So we were at 4, now we're at 9 days for us to be able to get to this phase of life for the small maggots. Let's see. I don't have any specific answers on that. Nope. Okay. So now let's look at this fly with crumpled wings. So a fly in this stage means it has just emerged from its puparium and hasn't gained, or its pupa, and hasn't gained the mobility to fly yet. So when they come out, just like butterflies, they have to like get their wings to dry before they can fly. So its proximity to the body links that it probably hatched right there, because if it can't fly, then it probably hatched right there and it's just waiting to be able to fly. So is related to the victim, and you've determined that it gives us 16 days. So we had 4 days, 9 days, been at least 16 days to be flying a fly with crumpled wings. And it gives us the answer to number 5. So what is the difference between adult flies and flies with crumpled wings? Which is a better source of evidence? So if you remember, the adult fly, just regular adult flies, don't really tell me anything other than it's been at least like an hour for them to have found the body. Whereas if you find an adult fly with crumpled wings, that means that it has just hatched from its pupa. So if it just hatched, then it had to have been on the body to be eating, to be getting to be a bigger magnet, to then go into a pupa stage, to then hatch. So it is definitely giving you way more information. To be a fly with crumpled wings gives me a way better approximation of time of death. So that should be how you answer that. Is that the adult fly with crumpled wings would be a much bigger piece of evidence. Okay, getting close. Beetle. You have identified this species as a rove beetle. It arrives shortly after the maggots hatch, typically within a day and a half, to prey on the larva. So it's not eating the body generally, it is just there to be a predator, but we have kind of calculated when they generally get there. They get there about a day and a half after a person would die, because that gives it enough time for the maggots to actually be there to be eaten. So that was over here, number 4. What will appear within a day and a half to prey on larvae? A rove beetle. So that's the answer. And that's really it. So far we had 4 days, 9 days. This was 16 days. That's our biggest day count so far. So let's see if that is correct. And now that actually is an answer choice. And that's it. So from all the specimens that we looked at, the oldest thing we found was 16 days. It took 16 days for this crumpled fly to be there. So that is our biggest piece of evidence. So if we go down here, what was the time of death? It's been at least 16 days since the person died. How did you determine it? It was based on our adult fly with crumpled wings. That was our best piece of evidence because that was the oldest insect there. All right, so I went through all of the answers. You should be able to get them right then. All right, have a good day and a week.